They call me the Don, not saying that I'm a mobster, but lyrically I'll break your kneecaps while eating pasta. Got Ducktown, Atlantic City roots, but my casa and Galloway like Rodney Jerkins and Nookie Johnson. Grandma made meatballs, the only other option was...
All right, thank you for joining us here with Tap In with Tom. I'm Tom Venafro, the host, and my guest here, John Henderson. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me, Tom.
We really appreciate it. We're excited to learn a lot from you, and we're also excited to hear more about your journey for those that may not know. So, John, why don't you just go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself, and then we'll take the interview from there.
Wow, about myself. I mean, these are always a challenge, Tom. Talking about yourself, right? You want to seem modest. You don't want your ego in check, but I like to hear myself talk. So
the man, the myth, the legend. Why don't we just start with the mustache?
Yeah, it's a lifestyle choice. I'm gonna be honest. It's a lifestyle choice. It's not for everybody. I've been rocking it for the better part of 20 years.
Okay.
When this jumped ship, this popped in, and I just kind of I rolled with it, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did the mustache come first, or did the unique look start prior to the mustache?
I think the career path. Very P.T. Barnum-esque, like, yo, that guy might tie somebody to a railroad track vibe.
Okay.
It kind of just fell into place, and I went with it. And I think I shaved it once. My daughters walked in and screamed and ran out of the room, so I just decided to keep it forever.
Okay. And we're going to get into your career, but if you would, for the viewers, will you at least let them know what your current position is and what you currently do, and then we'll get into the story from there.
Tom, every day I'm doing something different. So today, my name's John Henderson. I am the founder and producer of Good Time Tricycle. I am also the vice president of marketing for Caesars Entertainment. There
you go. Thank you. And, what's your personal connection to the city?
This is a 30-year-old question, Tom. My personal connection, Atlantic City has afforded me the opportunity to be creative, to support my family, to, create a career, and I've tried to be reciprocal to the city. So I guess it's a very organic, very symbiotic relationship to the city of Atlantic City. I don't think I would be me without Atlantic City, and I think Atlantic City would probably be 1 million visitors shy without a me. So, it's symbiotic, I guess is the right word.
Yeah. And would you consider yourself someone who enjoyed nightlife prior to your Atlantic City experience, or were you someone that you found enjoyment in any time in Atlantic City area?
Just enjoyment in life. I mean, I don't think we put an AM or a PM on it. I think we jump in and we enjoy it for what it's worth. Yeah.
Okay. And for the beer fest, right? The Atlantic City Beer Fest, which I personally enjoyed. When did that come about?
So weirdly, I went to an industry event in Pennsylvania. It was really launching different beers, and the lion's share of them were foreign beers, and with a small piece of American craft. And I was always a beer dork, right? When I'd go to a bar, my go-to would be a Bass, or something, weirdly unique. And I thought, what? There's all these experiences for wine. What does it look like for beer? So I go to this industry event, and at the time, there's probably about 15 different craft breweries there. I just thought, I was producing the Atlantic City Tattoo Expo at the time.
Okay.
And we were in the convention center. I was like, you know what? There is a call for an opportunity, and you'll hear me use this phrase, right? I use it a lot because I think it's true. Opportunity for discovery, right? Because my philosophy is an opportunity for discovery leads to trust. Trust leads to loyalty, right? Mm-hmm. So when you give somebody the opportunity for discovery, you started to create this journey or assist them in this journey. And I saw that with craft beer. Not just as a guy who liked, something better and, the opportunity to introduce people to better beer, but the opportunity to create something with entertainment value. Now, in 2005, the year that it took to create it, if you would have told me what it would have turned into 5 years later, I wouldn't have believed you.
Okay.
Right. But, 2006, 2007, 2008, every year, we did double-digit growth in attendance, so much that, we started to see other people try to replicate, or other groups try to replicate what we created, which was funny. The ABC, the New Jersey Alcohol Beverage Control, came to us and they said, hey, we really like how you do this. Can you help us out? The guidelines for craft beer festivals, now whiskey festivals for the state of New Jersey, came out of our offices. Wow. Because of the Atlantic City Beer
Interesting.
Festival.
Now, when you were building the brand, do you think some of your philosophy on a suitless lifestyle went into that? Like beer drinkers, tend to be more casual. Would you say, or would you say that the AC Beer Fest allows for people to be casual where maybe they wouldn't have been?
I think it was time and place. I think it was not specifically what I was doing, but the era in which I was doing it, right?
Okay.
It was a level of expert comfort, right? It was, business casual. It was jeans and t-shirt. It was, just because you didn't look like a CEO didn't mean you weren't a CEO. Okay. And I think I leaned into that. I'm a punk rock kid. I grew up a skater, snowboarder, punk rock kid. Yeah. I had a mohawk for a big chunk of my life, so, I'm heavily tattooed. So I kind of, it was easy to lean into it. But at the same time I was leaning to it, it was just naturally happening across the country.
That's correct. And, now that you're a VP at Harrah's, does the mustache feel different in the boardroom, or is it the same rebel spirit, just in a different seat?
I think what put me in the vice president of marketing role at Caesars was kind of all of the above, right? Yeah. I think from an Atlantic City standpoint, some of these groups needed to look at things a little differently. And I had a history of looking at things differently and approaching, how to bring a guest into market differently, how to tell a story differently. And it resounds nationwide because, we've got, a laundry list of events. And in the events, my skill set was never actually event production. It was business development and understanding kind of the moving parts of each thing. I've weirdly, sometimes you just know things, right? I've always had this weird ability to kind of sit down and break something down, look at it for its value parts and its less value parts, put it back together with the value parts being dominant.
Now, it makes sense to me that business development is your expertise because you left your career and started Good Time Tricycle with a $5,000 loan, right? Take us back to day one. What was the most terrifying part of leaving that steady paycheck, right? Knowing now that you have to do all the business development on your own.
It's funny. I did in tandem, built Good Time Tricycle while working for Caesars Entertainment. Probably a good 6 years. I was, for a while I was player development, and then I tried to leave to pursue the Good Time Tricycle stuff. I was like, all right, I'm doing well outside. I'm willing to take that jump. And the gentleman I reported to, Scott Barber, said, now listen, you're doing incredible things that we haven't seen before. Just hold tight. And he went and got the person who sat in my role at the time. And they were like, listen, we don't want you to go. We want to foster what you're doing, but we also want you to do kind of that similar thing for us. And I ended up being the director of business development for Caesars Entertainment. I did this for 3 years, kind of creating partnerships like with the Food Network, like Jacques Torres Chocolate, beverage programs, and did this, in the building that's attached to here.
Now, going back to that initial $5,000 loan, what did you initially do in order to validate the idea that Good Time Tricycle will work? It sounds like you did do it in tandem, but was there anything that, you could point out as a key highlight that made you realize this is going to work?
No, I wish I could say, hey, here was the catalyst. Yeah. The $5,000 I borrowed from my dad was for the deposit for the first Atlantic City Tattoo Expo at the convention center. Okay. I had a friend who said, hey, what would be cool? Let's do a tattoo show in Atlantic City in the convention center. There was only 3 or 4 in the country, one in Scranton, one in Michigan, and I know one in California. So we were amongst the first tattoo expos or conventions in the country. And everybody thought I was out of my mind. They're like, oh, there's not going to be a draw. There's not going to be a draw. Fast forward to kind of a year of kind of building it, putting it together, and we had a line around the building. We had artists from all over the country, and that was kind of our first forte, and it's still a program that is in place. It's actually the largest gathering of working artists
the international reach is key.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate with it, and we've been fortunate that it helped spearhead and launched kind of everything that turned Good Time Tricycle, because Beer Fest was actually after that.
Okay. And creating the vibe. So I've been to Beer Fest, and it had that more of a house party feel, right? You had the band that, I could have just been in a friend's backyard with a local band on stage. How did you manufacture that energy? And is there a formula that you use to make sure something will stick?
Experience, right? I look at any one of these lifestyle events or any program we create, and it translates to any business. Layers, right? Attendees, customers, they want to look at layers, right? If you're just if you have a store and you just sell pants, it's only one layer. Now you had shirts
correct.
and hats, and so the philosophy to add, local culinary, to add music, to add shenanigans, it was by design. It was by design for a couple different reasons. One, we wanted to entertain people. The programs, every one of them are meant to entertain. I walk through the crowd, and I just look for people smiling and engage people, and just because this is what I'm looking for, I want to make sure that I did my job. The other piece was to engage local businesses for two reasons. One, economic impact is hugely important, right? And I look at this, the new role as my opportunity to do even more of it. But in the tattoo show, the seafood fest, micro wrestling, witchcraft, beer fest, we always brought in local purveyors, be it food, be it craft, be it, because we know that they're going to talk about us, right? They're going to validate what we do, which helps sell tickets. And we're going to be able to support them or help support kind of what they've created, be it food, be it craft, be it art, and help drive some revenue into their pockets. So those layers were all by design. It was not like we didn't fumble over those. We knew that, here is a recipe to make the yummiest chocolate chip cookie ever.
Yeah, and taking me back to when you had mentioned you're looking in the crowd to see the smiles, you're obviously an expert in consumer behavior. And some of that could actually go into how you choose your volunteers. How did you make sure that your volunteers were the right cultural fit? And how did you even obtain so many volunteers to be able to, put on these massive events in Atlantic City? It's
funny. The volunteer thing is a trapdoor, right? We've been fortunate that we've had access to Stockton University and the hospitality group. And for the longest time, it was young kids, young adults, right, who were relatively hungry and wanted to be a part of something, right? And my model was, if you volunteered for us, if you were kind of a part of the team, I touched everybody. For the most part, we'd have 100 and some volunteers, and I tended to know 90% of their names.
Okay.
Just because I wanted to interact. I wanted them to feel good about the work they were doing and the support they were giving us. But I always offered and wrote tons of letters of recommendation.
That's the best thing you can get as a volunteer.
And encourage people to call me. Like if you're doing an interview and you really want the job, I highly encourage that person to call me, because I love to sell people.
Yeah. And, just offering those letters of recommendation probably provided your volunteers with a ton of dignity that made them want to do more for you. I bet you have a high retention rate on volunteers that come back the next year.
We've created a weird cult-like vibe that I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of the relationships I've created and the people we've created them with. Most of my team started off as volunteers and then, ended up as full-time team members. We've got team members in running venues in California now. My buddy Andrew. So I've seen the people who I'll take a little bit of credit in kind of part of their development.
Nurtured their career.
Fostered. And you're just hugely proud in seeing some of these people you put out into the universe, and you had a little, if it's a month, if it's an event.
They may have chosen a different industry.
Yeah.
And now they're able to do what they love, and you help them find that passion.
We like to think that.
We're going to talk a little bit about crisis management, the logistical side of this event planning. So logistics for the second largest beer fest in the United States are insane, right? Can you share one disaster moment from an early event that you fixed without attendees ever knowing?
I can share one that's actually relatively recent.
Okay. Oh boy.
Yeah, relatively recent, and really, I mean, shocking, right?
Okay.
And he's probably going to listen to the podcast, so he'll get it. We had a team member have a massive heart attack in the back of one of our coolers.
Oh no.
At 10:05 when the show opened at noon, and
It's brutal.
Here's massive heart attack. I will tell you, if he and his doctor told him this, so this isn't, if he had been anyplace else, he would no longer be with us. But because he was surrounded by people who had a general idea of what to do, jumped into action. EMS came. We worked on him, and the building worked on him for 15 minutes before EMS got there. We got him in. We got him, to the hospital, and we started the festival off, without anybody even knowing a difference. There's through the years, there's always something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you prepare for it.
And I am curious, more vaguely, for folks that are listening, how do you manage things that you can't control? You
can't control everything, and especially when you're dealing with tens of thousands of people, right? The human element is always a surprise.
Even weather
you can watch, right? There's forecasts. Yeah. There's not forecast for people being crazy, right? And if you look at the nature of kind of our programs, we kind of lean towards crazy, right? Crazy sells. So, I've always prepared from the human element. Always treat people with kindness, but always aware that we are humans and we are capable of chaos.
Do you get anxiety before an event?
Never.
You're it's like an athlete going into a race.
How do you feel when you go to work?
Ready.
Yeah.
Prepared.
Yeah. So it's not anxiety. It's not weird sense of joy. I like people. I'm a people person.
It's feeding your social battery.
It is.
Right?
It really is. I don't get socially burnt out from people.
No.
I can just talk and talk and
talk.
talk.
It feeds you.
Yeah. I like to hear myself talk. So we have those conversations a lot. I talk to myself. I answer myself. But no, I don't subscribe to the chaos. I kind of just lean into it.
Okay.
And it turns into a level of control. I mean, and it also comes with trust, right? Because I've got, my security staff is fantastic. My team, we game out potential problems before they happen. So we know, okay, what happens if sound goes out? What happens if light goes out? What happens if, God forbid, we have, somebody who comes and assaults, the show? We talk through all those scenarios, right? And we handle every scenario that we've had with grace. And I'm really proud of the team that I've been fortunate to surround myself with.
So you're quite the expert in crisis management then.
Yeah.
So look at how it's grown, right? From business development to really, like you mentioned, you really touch all aspects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to.
I want to talk about some resilience. You were able to pivot and survive through COVID. The industry basically shut down overnight. How did you keep your team motivated and the lights on?
The grants from the government didn't suck after that hit, right? But no, I knew when it first came, and it's funny because my daughter, who's in the industry now, she was like, it's going to be okay. And when they announced, I was like, no, this is going to be bad. This is going to be bad for what we do. And I knew it, right? You get a sixth sense, right? I was like, this is going to be bad for our industry. And lo and behold, they were just shutting down left and right. And I was very stubbornly very pro human contact. So when people are like, oh, you're going to do online virtual events, absolutely not. I'm not going to do that.
It's not the same effect.
What we're doing, and you see that it's done, is we're now forcing people into technology when we still had a little bit of time of human connection. And now look at how many little kids now are just iPads in their faces. COVID did that, right? COVID said, screens in your faces. This is okay. This is safe. Screens in your face is safe. And I didn't subscribe to that. We were the first live event in the state of New Jersey to happen. Was the Beer Fest directly after it was 21. We were the first live event, and we had helicopters going over the top. We did social distancing on Bader Field. It was if you did the whole loop to try a beer, you walked yourself sober.
Wow. That's incredible. We're very happy for that.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yes.
You
yes,
managed things properly so that you could withstand that crisis, and now you've got this incredible career. I want to talk about some of that. We'll call it the boomerang effect.
Yep.
You left the casino world to build your own thing, and now you're back. So why return? What does this role allow you to do for the city that you couldn't do as just Tricycle John?
It's funny. I'll always be Tricycle John. That's a thing. It's funny when I've been doing this for 22 years, right? So when I left to kind of do it on myself or with my team, right? Because no man's an island. We don't do these things by ourselves. I thought, I'm never going back inside. I'm never going to work for anybody else again. Right. And then, 10 years goes by and, you've created all these opportunities and you're doing it with a Swiss Army knife, right? I'm building this thing with a team and this
making
Swiss
an
Army
impact.
knife. Yeah.
You were
absolutely.
making an impact.
Absolutely. And, it keeps going. COVID hits, you to your point, you pivot, you jump back in there, you see the human animal change, you see your city change, and you're still working with this Swiss Army knife, and still doing great things, but you want more, right? And I didn't think that at 51 years old, I look good for 51, that, you would have the opportunity, much less make the choice. Caesars has always been an important part of what we've done. They've always been our biggest supporter. Every program we did, they supported us for sponsorships through hotel rooms. Always had an open line to any general manager in the city.
This relationship was ongoing.
It was never, they fostered what this turned into, right? When this role came up, it had really piqued my interest. And now it takes that Swiss Army knife that Good Time Tricycle is, right? And it is. And now gives me a new team, right? A larger team, and a garage versus a Swiss Army knife, right?
Yeah.
It allows me to take, with a team and, general managers who all see this vision, and really kind of look back on what Atlantic City used to be and apply parts of that to try to get past. Because listen, New York gaming is 3 years away, right? In some space. Yeah. And it was always coming. Casinos have been popping up around us for the better part of 20 years, and we don't ever talk about that. Oh, casinos are coming to Connecticut. Oh, they're coming to Philly. Oh, yeah. I mean, gaming is gaming, right? What we've got to get back to is understanding that we're an entertainment destination and gaming's a part of that, but that's not all of it. And I think kind of the current leadership, at Caesars sees that as well. And it's why they take a shot on a guy who's very, very untraditional when it comes to kind of this role.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask whether it was difficult to turn the ship around, but it sounds like you've got the resources, you've got the support from leadership. It sounds like it's not too hard to turn the ship into corporate environment at all. Oh
no, there's some struggles. Like there's some struggles. As we sit here and do this podcast, I'm 10 days into the role, right? So
I hear you.
We go back to what I said earlier. Opportunity for discovery. I forget that it applies to me as well, right? I've been saying it for so long, but yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to jump on board and be a part of something that could really change the market, right? Showing that an organization like Caesars is in the game, is in the entertainment business, and we're going to show you, and to work with kind of new people, smart people, and to still kind of do the Good Time Tricycle thing and, sit behind my team where before I sat in front of them, now I sit behind and go, all right, good. Now that works. And I get to whisper in some ears.
That's incredible. That's great. Now your marketing experience is, few and far between. It's incredible. And I'm really appreciative that you're part of marketing Atlantic City, this underdog beachfront destination. Why does embracing the grit work better than trying to paint us as more polished? And how do you sell authenticity?
I mean, I think it's that people want human experiences, right?
Yeah.
And they want affordable experiences, and when you talk about Atlantic City, I've said it a bunch of times and I think it might be offensive, but I'll say it out loud. It's like, no, we're not the prettiest girl at the dance, but man, we can shake. we can shake it, right?
That's incredible.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's
and
it.
you know, so many great restaurants, so many great day life, nightlife, you know, so many personality driven bars, you know, and even these properties, you know, the bartenders you meet, the dealers you meet. I mean, there is a lot of personality and there's a lot of humanity in Atlantic City. And I think if you get past the stigma of, oh, Atlantic City's dangerous. Well, Atlantic City's no dangerous than any other city in America. And I would argue that it's significantly less dangerous than Philadelphia, less dangerous than
agree.
New York, right?
agree.
So, you know, I think that's all BS. You know, we've got, you know, one of the prettiest streets in America with the boardwalk, right? You know, off season, again, great food. You know, you've got, you know, programming happening. You've got cool little joints like Anchor Rock Club. You've got cool little joints like this, right? So I don't think people look at Atlantic City with the right lens. You know, and it's our jobs to kind of open the aperture, right? And say, all right, this is actually what it is. You know, culinary, parties,
Managing
friends.
expectations.
That's a big part of it. That's a big part of it. You know, letting
I would
people
agree.
understand what Atlantic City is versus was, you know, that's, you know, it's an exercise.
It absolutely is, and you've got experience with events that definitely stretch the boundaries of what Atlantic City was, specifically the witchcraft.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So, how do you identify these niches? Is it data? Is it purely gut instinct? Talk to me about that.
Yes, it's all of the above.
Okay.
I am a student of people.
Okay.
Right? Trends,
Consumer behavior.
Yeah, you know
people.
Yeah, I like to follow trends. I like to see what's hot. I like to see what's hot in other, you know, in Europe. You know, what's going on in, you know, in the Asian markets. What's happening in the world, because it will eventually translate. You know, what's going on in California. You know, we were doing silent disco here well before anybody even thought of silent disco. You know, my buddy, the same guy who we talked about with the heart attack, he figured out how to take the FM modulators with the headphones and create a silent disco system before there was a silent disco system.
I enjoyed it. It was at Beer Fest.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable. I think experience marketing is so critical right now compared to traditional ads. Would you agree?
Absolutely. You can compare an experience, and experience comes with a feeling. An ad has a hard time really pulling that out of somebody.
So let me talk to you about your B2B relationships, the vendors. So you have hundreds of breweries wanting in, right? How do you curate that list and maintain relationships? So needing to understand when you need to say no to people or not.
Authenticity, right? I think that's a really important part of 90% of these relationships, be it the restaurant brands, the beer brands, the liquor brands, the tattoo artists, any one of these. I think it comes down to authenticity. I think a consumer can smell BS.
Okay.
Right. It's a better product when it's authentic. Right. So we tend to, with these relationships, look at that. I think, you know, what's your story? How does your story apply to ours? How do we tell a story together? You know, and that spans, you know, almost every single industry.
I'm shocked by this actually, because I don't know that other beer fests are doing that. You're really getting the story of these vendors. So
well,
for example,
no business does.
So, you know, if I were to ask you, my favorite beer was Erie Brewing Company. Mm-hmm. I bet you could probably recite a portion of their story, and
yes, so I know quite a few people at Erie.
I'm putting you to test. This is this is totally off script. I'm curious.
So Kirsten at Erie Brewing Company has been coming to the festival for the better part of 15 years.
Okay,
they're not hugely distributed in the state. They're late, but she saw value in what we created.
Okay,
and every year we're in. Here we come. You know, even as distribution of their product has fallen throughout the state. Wow.
That's incredible. Yeah, I'm glad I got to test you on that. Not every beer fest is doing that. So that shows the passion that you have for your events and what you do.
Well, if we speak specifically to beer fest, like you saw a trend where just to sell tickets, a lot of these festivals were like, all right, we'll put RTDs in, we'll put this in, we'll put that in. And we said no. We were authentic to kind of what the foundation of the festival was created on. Plus, you know, we've got an ecosystem of an industry that we have to look out for.
Wow. Well, I want to hear more about, you know, seasonality and advice. So you successfully run events in the shoulder seasons, some may call, right? March and April. What is your advice to business owners in seasonal towns on getting customers to show up when the weather isn't perfect?
desirability, likability. I think if you are going to put something in a seasonal location, you need to think about that in advance, right?
Okay.
If you're thinking about just surviving, the 3 or 4 months of summertime, you really need to reevaluate, or you need to be smart with your money and make sure that 3 or 4 months stretches to 12 months, right? So I think it's really, when you're in a seasonal market, who are you talking to? Is it a local market? Is it a tourism market? Is it a hybrid of both, right? Do you just say, hey, we're good for 4 months and you can live off it? Or do you adjust for the time of year where it's a little chillier, people aren't out? And, if you're a tourist-based market, when everybody else leaves, can you cater to a local market?
We've actually had a podcast previously where someone had mentioned Atlantic City considering other shore towns as a use case. In that podcast, they mentioned Virginia Beach. My question for you is, do you have other use cases that you'd like to mention?
Yeah, I think what people forget, right? A lot of times when we talk about Atlantic City, people are so quick to say Las Vegas and Reno solely because of gaming, right? And that's not actually it. If we look at any city, Atlantic City is a black city, right? We look at any other city in America that really kind of represents its commodity as tourism, its populace is a mostly black city. It's New Orleans, right? The only thing Atlantic City is missing, is the pride that New Orleans residents have for their city. And I think, you infuse a little bit of that, it's a game changer.
I agree. I think that that would be fantastic for Atlantic City to have its identity to be more than just gaming, right? Because you already do a great job of bringing the Mardi Gras to Atlantic City. So we just need to have that identity spread nationally or globally, and it would definitely help the city. I've got a question for you on kind of a funny question, a billboard question. If you could put one message on a billboard on the Atlantic City Expressway for every entrepreneur, and visitor to see, what would it say? Or would there be two different billboards, one for entrepreneurs and one for visitors? What would they say?
That's a great question that I really don't have an answer for, man. Wow. I think I go back to, if we're talking about Atlantic City, I think we go back to what I said earlier. We're not the prettiest girl at the dance, but man, we can shake it. Right.
Okay.
Right. I've never actually considered myself an entrepreneur. I know by definition I am.
Talk us through that.
I just never, I've always been, for lack of a better term, a hustler. Man, you got to put in the time, you put in the work, you put in the effort, the sleepless nights, I never thought about it. Weirdly, I've been at this for 22, 23 years. Entrepreneur kind of ends up being a hipster word for the last 5 or 6 years when I've been at it for the better part of 2 decades. Advice that I'd put on a billboard for entrepreneurs, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt in the process.
Love that take. Love that take.
It's real. I think, the growing pains that you go through in developing your own business, and, it leads to how you develop your personality. And, so yeah, I don't, for entrepreneurs, what doesn't kill you definitely makes you stronger, but it hurts in the process.
That's a great take. And, I just wanted to say thank you for coming here. As a fan and as someone who's actually held a cup at Beer Fest, we appreciate this master class that you're providing us on your experience, your journey, and, what others could possibly do to be in your shoes one day. So thank you, John, for coming in today. How can we all get in touch with you? How can someone listening, join you as a volunteer or just connect with you to learn more?
Tom, listen, thanks for having me. Thanks for, placating my ego. I appreciate the heck out of that. We did an entire episode without me cussing. So let's, pat ourselves on the back for that one.
That's a big win.
Look at us being big boys. At Tricycle John, at AC Beer Fest, Beer Fest, at GTT, at Caesars Entertainment.
There you go.
I'm a very obtainable human being. Chances are if you email me, I respond. If you call me, I answer. That's how to grab me.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks
for
joining
Tapping with Tom. We'll talk again soon, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Began to ponder and think about all the music that we could conjure. Brutally being honest, soon you will see me conquer. No opportunity squandered. Failure's the highest honor.